All right, so tonight we're back for webinar number 7 of our Hops Lockdown series. Tonight we're excited to sit down with Dave MacKinnon with the Los Angeles Angels. Dave, thanks for being on with us tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, excited to wrapping up the week of guests and rolling into next week, which we'll probably announce that tomorrow, right, Matt? I think we're going to post that up tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to post the schedule for next week.
Yeah.
Why don't you just mention really quick who's going to be on tomorrow, too, before we introduce Steve?
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll have on Carson Cross, who's a pitching coach in the Milwaukee Brewers organization. He'll be wrapping up the week. So, Dave, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself, a little bit, talk about your playing days, high school, college, and then a little bit about your professional days as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Massachusetts, southeastern Mass, from Easton, Massachusetts. So I'm about maybe 40 minutes from Hops. Started talking to Matt at, I think it was like 3 years ago at Dr. Heenan, like a thing he put on for pitching. And we started talking hitting, and I was kind of interested in what he had and what Matt had to say about hitting. So came down. My swing wasn't where it needed to be, but he kind of started introducing some of these new, new philosophies of hitting to me. And that next year went back to pro ball, and those same type of philosophies were being talked about in pro ball. So that's how I got to Hops. I went to school at a public school, Oliver Ames in Easton, and then committed to University of Hartford in Connecticut. Played 4 years of soccer and baseball at University of Hartford there, and then graduated with an accounting degree and was fortunate to get drafted by the Los Angeles Angels, and fortunate to still be playing pro ball and hopefully keep rising up the ranks. But that's pretty much the little synopsis on my career so far.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what was it like? That was a pretty cool point. What was it like playing soccer and baseball in college? You don't hear many two-sport Division I athletes.
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. It was tough, obviously, just like from a school standpoint. You don't really have much time as is playing one Division I sport, and then you're having to play two Division I sports. So obviously they're not during the same time. It's not like basketball and baseball where part of the season is like they both playing in March. So I'm not I'm not missing part of one of the seasons, but pretty much missed a lot of class because of it. So you just got to make sure, you just got to make sure you keep up with all your grades and keep up with all your classes and work on the road when you're traveling and stuff, because when you get back, it gets crazy. You get like 2 or 3 days to do all your work, and you're constantly doing work on the road, trying to catch up with stuff. So, if you can do that, obviously it's a good thing, because the scholarship money is a little bit more when you can play two rather than just one.
Yeah. Let's just kind of rewind even before that. So when you were in high school going through your college recruiting process, what were some other schools that you were talking to, and what made Hartford feel like home?
Yeah, so the big thing, so it was my sophomore summer is kind of when my recruiting process started. We did back then there was a lot of the showcases were a big thing when I was I think that's still a pretty big thing now, but I did perfect game. I was in the top 5 in a showcase in the Northeast, so I started getting a lot of recognition there. Army, Hartford, UConn, a couple other teams reached out after that showcase. I didn't really have any sort of desire to go to a military school, so Army was kind of off the table. I respect it. They're good at baseball. We played them, but it just wasn't for me. I also got contacted by a couple of the Ivies. I went to a junior day at Dartmouth, but a lot of the Ivies don't start playing ball until mid to beginning of March. So they don't get as many games in, because obviously if you're at Ivy League school, you're school's 100% number one. You're not playing as big a season. So I was kind of out on that. So it was kind of just based on who I was. I wanted to get as many games in as possible, and I wanted to feel comfortable and feel like I had a chance to play my freshman year. So that kind of went on. I was in constant contact through email through my junior year, and then I think junior summer back in that during that time was when coaches could start calling you.
Yeah.
Like after your junior summer. Now it's sophomore summer, but yeah. So I started getting some calls, and I went to a camp at Delaware actually, and I got an offer there, and then went to a camp at Hartford and got an offer there, and we kind of weighed the options. And it was still early. I probably could have waited longer, but Hartford eventually gave me the opportunity to play soccer. So it was kind of like an easy decision for me. I wanted to do both as long as possible. I didn't know which one I was going to try to pursue professionally. So that was kind of the easiest. That was kind of made the easiest decision because they allowed me to try both. I mean, if it was too much for me, I would have had to pick the one I was probably better at, but it wasn't too much school-wise, so I was able to stick with both all 4 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that playing soccer really helped you develop as an athlete to carry over to baseball?
Yeah, I think just in general, I think a lot of kids are like, it's not bad to specialize. It's not bad to know what sport you want to play at a young age, like professionally. Like I always dreamed of playing baseball professionally when I was like 3 or 4, but I wasn't just going to play baseball growing up. Like I remember my parents always had us outside, running around. We were playing kickball. We were playing ball tag. We were playing capture the flag, manhunt. Like we were always outside, just running around, developing athleticism. And then I played soccer, basketball, and baseball growing up until 10th grade. Obviously continued soccer through college. Stopped playing basketball because I did want to start training baseball more in the winter. But I think if you can play 2 to 3 sports, especially when you're younger, and then as you get to high school, play 2 sports. If you can handle 3, go for it. But I think it definitely helps just develop, especially like a lot of moving, like soccer or basketball. If you can do that, and your baseball is you're not gonna lose, I don't know, development in your baseball. I think you should play as many sports as possible because it just adds another, I don't know, it just adds more athleticism like for you. And I think it stands out more in the field specifically.
Sure, and that's actually what I was going to jump into next, because I think it goes on a case-by-case basis, right? So because you were elite at both things, then you were able to do it. I think there are because some people just make that broad statement that you should just play, right? Multi-sport athletes are the big thing. But you also have to make sense where if you're an athlete who needs to focus on, if you do ultimately want to play baseball, you need to focus on sometimes baseball. I mean, if you're already elite enough to play Division I soccer and Division I baseball, that's a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
That means that you're already there from an athletic.
So like my soccer development, there wasn't much of a development. Like my high school, I was always just good at playing goalie. Like by no means was I a good soccer player. I was good at goalie. I could kick the ball really far with my right foot. I couldn't kick it really with my left foot. So I was good at goalie. I was good at not letting the ball go in there, but it wasn't by any means, I wasn't like one of those tall, skinny goalies that you see on TV now that are like 6'5" and they just have a huge reach. Like I was just a strong dude that went up and just kind of pushed dudes out of the way and caught the ball. That was kind of how it was. And that's how goalie was explained to me in high school by my soccer coach. So I just got good at that. And that was kind of how the college soccer was work. That was kind of how college was. So I was just really good at going up and going over people and just being bigger and stronger than people. So it wasn't like I was really working on that, developing my soccer at a young age. It was kind of like I was good enough to play. And they developed me a lot more in college. I got like technically better at soccer in college, but by no means was I developed. I wasn't spending tons of time during high school and middle school developing in soccer. That was all pretty much baseball. That was kind of where my parents put the money. Like I would play the sports in like soccer, but I didn't play AAU or club soccer. I played club baseball. Like, so that's where the development went for me. And I just kind of played soccer because I enjoyed it and because I was good at it, and it helped me just stay athletic and keep running pretty much.
Yeah, and I know that you I don't think you really mentioned it yet, and we haven't really spoken about it, but your main position is first base, right?
Yeah, now it is. Yeah. Not when
Yeah.
I was younger. I'm
Sure.
stuck over there.
Right. But at the same time, I think that playing, you can almost attribute some of your hand-eye and some reaction time playing infield to possibly playing goalie and even having good eyesight and reaction, because that's one of your positives when it comes to hitting too.
Yeah, for sure. I think they directly correlate, the whole like goalie, like in first base, are pretty much like in my head. I treat them as the same. I just like my job's to just not let the ball get past me.
Yeah.
If I can block it and just run it over the base or flip it to the pitcher, like that's a good job on my part. If they make a bad throw to me, my job's to keep it in front to make sure he doesn't get to second or to pick it. So if it's an easy enough play.
Sure.
And just I think pretty much at first and third, because I also played third in college a little bit. It's just pretty much a step and a dive, you know? Like if you can't get it on a step and a dive, it's just reactionary. And that's kind of how it is in goalie. You just take a step and you dive and you hope you can get to it. So that definitely helped with all that training and reaction time, and also reading the spin of the ball at first, just how the ball came out. Did the guy backspin it from short or second? Did he cut it by accident? Like just reading that also came with soccer too, because they spin the ball differently every time. You got to read that pretty quickly.
Sure. Before we kind of get into the little bit more of the technical aspects of the swing, I was wondering if you could talk about how your rehab went and speak to your unfortunate injury from last year and how that's going.
Yeah, so it was super unfortunate. Fortunately, we're back 100% now. But it was crazy. It was a crazy injury, but I think it needed to happen, honestly. Which is a weird thing to say, but it gave me about a year to just straight up dive into my swing and mechanically like change things and develop my swing to be what could be a big league swing down the line. And if I didn't have this time with our coordinator and with our strength staff in Arizona for the last 8 months, I think it could be like, who knows, you know, I don't know if I would have got out of my slump, because I was slumping pretty bad at the beginning of the year. Do
you mind just saying what happened? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. So, pretty much beginning of the year, had a good spring training, went away to California in high A, and I think I was hitting $150 through the first 2 weeks of the season, and which isn't crazy. You play 140 games. It was like 14 games, but I was struggling, and I was running to first on a ground ball and tried to avoid a tag. There was a bad throw, so I tried to avoid a tag and tore my MCL, or partially tore my MCL, and they had to go in and fix my meniscus as well. So it was a pretty big knee injury, and it was supposed to be 9 to 12 months, and we got back in 8.5. So that was exciting. I was all set for spring training this year. Unfortunately, the coronavirus kind of took that away from everyone, but yeah, I'm good now, and that's kind of how my 2019 went. But I got to spend the entire time working with our strength staff and our hitting coordinator, and kind of just develop as a ball player without getting. It's tough to not play games, but it definitely helped to dive into the science behind hitting and just different movement patterns.
Yeah. So can the last couple of seminars or talks that we've had were with Nick Birdie and Mason, both who have gone through pretty serious injuries recently. So I was wondering if you could kind of take us through the mental challenge from your perspective of going through something like that in the rehab.
Yeah. So for me, I remember I was struggling really, really, really bad at the affiliate, hitting like $150. And I remember like praying that day, and I was like, God, like you just got to stop this from happening. Like I can't do any more 0 for 4s. And that day I tore my ACL. So I was like, all right, like you took that way too literal. I can't play the rest of the year now. So I ended up back in, obviously, Arizona. Pretty much had a 2-week vacation from Arizona after spring training to go tear my ACL in California, and I got shipped back to Arizona. So the crazy thing about an ACL is if it's swollen, which mine was unbelievably swollen, my knee, it was like I don't know, probably a solid 3 inches wider on the swollen side than it was on the other side, and they had to drain it and everything after the injury. And the crazy thing was I had to sit and wait till surgery for a month till the swelling completely went away, even after they drained it. So I was just sitting there waiting, not sitting, but like they were making me do prehab, which is just, we're trying to activate the quad muscle so that when I come back, or when after surgery, it's not so atrophied that it takes 14 months to come back rather than just 9.
Yep.
Which I was all like, oh, this is the worst. Cut me open already. I'm just so, I know they're doing their job, but I was just like, I feel like I'm not doing anything here. They were doing their job. They did the right thing because we came back in 8.5 months. But yeah, that was just a battle for me. That was the toughest month. That month after I got hurt and I was waiting for surgery, it felt like I was just doing nothing, kind of. Like I wasn't working towards anything. I was just sitting there waiting. Because I see my buddies, which I don't want anyone to ever like hurt their elbow or anything, but they like tear their elbow and they get surgery like 2 days later. I'm like, why can't I get surgery 2 days later? And it was just frustrating to see. And then with my knee injury, it was tough because all my buddies, most of them are pitchers in rehab, like Mason was, he's in rehab still. Most of my buddies are pitchers in rehab. There aren't too many lower body injuries. And I see they're like they're like a couple weeks later, they're just like doing like slight cuff weights and stuff with their arm. And I was looking at my rehab and they're like yanking my knee up and down and like trying to get the full range. It was the most painful thing after surgery ever. They're trying to get that full range of motion back. And I'm like, can't you guys just like, let me do some cuff weights and let me get this back whenever. But it was just, yeah. So I think the toughest part was just the waiting game. And then that first month after surgery, actually like the actual surgery, getting the range of motion back was bad. But mentally, I didn't really have any I feel like it mentally strengthened me more than anything, just because I have so much more confidence now in what I'm doing at the plate and after just diving into the science behind everything and just how we've developed my swing over the last year and how many reps I've gotten to feel like how my swing's supposed to feel. I just have so much more confidence now. The toughest part was just running again, pretty much, just trusting my knee. That was the toughest part at the end. That was like the mentally tough part. But baseball wise, like mentally, I'm just so much stronger now than I ever have been because of injury.
That's good. That's good. That's what I was hoping that you would bring up, is the fact that you turned something that happened to you into a positive experience from that standpoint. Specifically in regards to the swing, could you kind of bring up what exactly, maybe you went back and looked at that 150 and what did you work on, or what did you see, and what are you changing going into, or did you change going into the spring training?
Yeah. So that 150 last year, I felt like, honestly, my whole career, I've never had really a timing mechanism. Like lots of dudes have leg kicks or like a toe tap or just like a hover. They do something to get ready. Yep. And I didn't have anything. I felt like I just picked my foot up and put it down. I hoped when my foot was down, I just swung and hit it. Like that's what I hoped. So I told our coordinator, I was like, I want a toe tap. I don't feel comfortable doing a leg kick. I never was a guy that liked his foot off the ground very high. When I do have my foot off the ground, it feels like it's way higher than it actually is. It'll be 2 inches off the ground when I think it's when my knee's at my chin. Like it just doesn't work for me. Yep. So the toe tap really helped me feel like I could control my movement forward. And I wouldn't be out of control trying to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. I felt like I could still compete with that. So it just took a long time to get it down. It probably took 4 or 5 months to get really good at it. But it was a process that started, honestly, when I had first come into the hops, where I was just figuring out there's like the whole getting on plane early. That's kind of where it started. And now I'm just kind of now I've gotten good at that, and now I'm just trying to figure out we have finally figured out a rhythm where and a timing mechanism for me to consistently get on plane early and do damage, you know.
Sure. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I remember talking to you about, where you always said you had a good eye, and
Mhm.
you always tended to put the ball in play. And you just knew that in order to continue to progress through the professional ranks, you had to somewhat adapt your swing because they needed to see some more power
Mhm.
from you, right?
Yes, for sure.
And you never really had a chance to quite really work on that because then there was a season,
Yes.
right? And then you had that season, and then you went into the off season, and you still continued to work on it. It did very well, especially the second half of that
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah. The second half I had a good 2018. First half was mediocre. Second half was really good. But and then I went to the fall league after that.
Yep.
And that's like freaking it was the greatest experience ever. I got to face some of the best arms in the league or in the all of minor league baseball that debut the next year. But it's also tough, you know, because typically you're only getting a couple at bats a week, or you're getting a couple games in a week because it's a prospect type thing where everyone has to play, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely tough I just had a tough time getting into any sort of rhythm. Towards the end, I was starting to figure it out, and then kind of went home after that. That ended in mid-November, and took a month off or so, and then got back into it. But I felt like I didn't really get to dive into. I felt like I've just really never gotten to fully dive into the mechanics of my swing and the mechanics that I want to have.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of playing soccer in college, I never got to have a fall ball where a lot of guys spend time developing their swings and stuff. And then when I got to pro ball, I feel like I had that first off season, but I wasn't quite sure what I needed to do that first off season. I was just getting my reps in.
Yep.
And that was the 2017 to 18 off season. I wasn't quite sure. Like I was swinging and I was working on the stuff that I knew, but I don't think, but now that once things were explained and once I kind of developed like a vision of what I wanted to see after this injury, that's when I really was able to like set some goals and really see what I wanted to do and accomplish what I wanted to do.
Sure.
But
And then and that's, yeah. And I think that's speaking on this, it's a lot of it is trial. When it comes to hitting, a lot of it is trial and error with the basic understanding that you're looking to do certain things. But that's why there are some guys who have a toe tap. That's why there's some guys who have a leg kick, and that's why there's guys who don't even stride at all. So it's a matter of figuring out which way you want to go to get your timing mechanism down, right?
Yeah. It's just trial and error. Like took me 25 years to figure out that I was a toe tap guy, you know, like I never figured it out. We tried it too before, like my father-in-law, we tried it a couple of years ago and we just couldn't do it. You know, my brother-in-law, who's with the Sox right now. I'm sure there's a bunch of Sox fans watching. He had a toe tap a while ago. He doesn't have it now, but that's kind of where like I first saw it and I was like, I think I want to do that. Not as big as he had it, but I want to do something like that. And we have a couple guys in our organization now that do that. One of our top prospects, Brennan Marsh, he had a nice toe tap. And then obviously everyone watched Vlad Jr. last year and I saw that swing and I was like, oh, like it looks like he's just in such good control and he puts so much force into the ground and just decelerates his swing so easy that I want to try doing that. Like that's what I want. That's what I want to look like. Obviously Vlad's a freak and like not too many people can hit like him. But if I could do like something like that, you're a big leaguer, you know, if you can do something like that. So I was just playing with it and playing with like the width and if I wanted to start narrow and do a toe tap or if want to start a little wider. And all of a sudden my coordinator goes, yeah, how'd you hit in college? And I was like, well, I was wider, not as narrow as I am now. And he's like, yeah, I know. I looked like your swing was bad, but you put your hands to the ball every single time. Like you didn't miss and you were just a little wider and there wasn't a big stride. And I was like, so like, what's your point? he's like, I want you to start wider, like almost from. So my kind of gauge is my front foot's almost at the front of the plate, and my back foot's in the back of the box. That's kind of where I'm starting, and I toe tap back, and I'm able to gain ground forward with my hip, and I'm not in an uncomfortable position where when I go backwards now, I almost get stuck. It's like two separate moves. Like I want my move, my sequence to be like one move. I don't want it to be two. And like a lot of guys with toe taps, they do two moves, you know. They toe tap, they stop everything, and then their hands get going when they're going forward. At that point, you could just start from back there. So that's what I was kind of doing to start, and then now we've kind of formed it to be one move now. I think when I came and hit with you, I was like in the middle version of that. It wasn't to where it is now. It's a lot better now, but yeah. So it was still trial and error after 3 months of having the toe tap to figure out exactly what we wanted, you know?
Sure. Could you, you mentioned a key word in that, that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit, if you can. You used the word decelerate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. So decelerate for me, it means in my head, this is how I understand it and how it resonates with me. It could mean something else for anyone else really, but for me, it means when I hit, I'm hitting against a firm front side. So my hip's not going to be blowing out towards, I'm a righty, so my hip's not going to be blowing out towards third base every time I swing. I'm going to be, so my front hip's going to stop my swing from over rotating towards left. And then I'm going to stop my chest. Like I'm going to stop my chest pretty much towards the pitcher. I'm not trying to over rotate that. So my head now spins off. And so I think you need to be strong enough to decelerate your swing. And that's what I dove into like big time. Obviously, like when you're rehabbing, you're just crushing the weight room 5 or 6 times a week. That's what they had us doing. So I put on about 15 pounds of, most of it had to have been muscle because I lost body fat. So I put on a good amount of muscle, and then the ball just started jumping. So once I figured out, like when I was swinging, and we also did a drill. I don't know if Troy Gloss, you know him, but Troy Gloss, when he would hit a home run, he would hit it, and then after he would swing, it would be like pulling it back to the front of him. So if I couldn't pull it back pull it back right away after I finished my swing, I didn't decelerate my swing good enough. So we kind of use that as a gauge just for like when I started getting too long and casting out back here and pulling off balls to like the dugout, our coordinator will just be like, hey, be Troy Gloss. And then I'm like, you mean Troy MacKinnon? But then I'll start doing that. I do it a couple times and it fixes everything. So I'm able to slowly decelerate my swing. I'm not throwing that elbow way out there and then just casting. I'm just kind of snapping that, slotting it, keeping like maintaining the angle to hit the ball and then being able to kind of pull it back. So for me, deceleration is just pretty much controlling my swing forward, like the direction of my swing towards center field.
Yeah, and that's where I heard that term, and I think that's a very good way. I've heard people start to use that term a little bit more over the last year, and I think it's a very important concept, especially for younger guys to really understand, because a lot of times you'll hear the cues or the coaches will see the guy who's pulling his head off the ball or the guy that's hooking the ball foul or even fouling the ball off their foot, or even the opposite of that, hitting a pop-up in foul territory right to the right side or to the opposite field.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's some cliches in baseball that we could try to get away from a little bit, and the way you just explained that really makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Where if you're not able to decelerate the swing, everybody thinks that everything's going to over-rotate, but it's actually putting brakes into the rotational movement that help you to actually stay through the ball so that stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah. So we did a lot of like work on, obviously there's a lot more technology in pro ball. That's just the reality. They have a lot of money they can use to spend on the development of players. So, I mean, Hops has a lot of the stuff, but like they go even farther. They have the sensors where they attach it to our bodies and they're able to see how fast we're rotating and all that stuff. So they obviously use all that stuff so that they can make adjustments to our swings that they might see fit. So some of the ideas obviously come from sensors and all that and the technology that they develop. And then other stuff just is kind of our coaches just going back and forth and talking to us about, hey, like you gotta your best swing is gonna be how fast. Like we want you to be rotating at max speed, but then we want you to be able to stop as fast as possible too. So if you're rotating super fast but you can't stop it, there's just that your swing is not going to play. You're just going to rotate out of your swing.
Exactly.
Your bat's going to just come out, like it's just not going to work. So we want to be obviously rotating as fast as possible, being able to stop that forward. And for me, I also figured out like it has a lot of your front oblique that has to do with it, and your front glute has to stop that rotation pretty good. And one-handed finish helped me a little bit, not totally one-handed, but like coming off the bat and kind of finishing there with my chest facing this way. Obviously, I also think benching a lot, like benching heavy, is not for everyone, but I benched pretty heavy when I was hurt, and you can't move your chest as much once it gets bigger, you know.
I think it depends on the person.
Really helped too.
Right?
Huh?
Depends on the person, and that's the uniqueness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, I feel like because I play first base, I don't need to be small, you know. So I can put some weight on, and it's not going to hurt me as long as I stay athletic. And obviously, if you're a center fielder that you're trying to hit for a little more power, you're probably not trying to put 15, 20 pounds on. You're trying to have that lanky, like long muscle. But for me, I just wanted to be as strong as possible and just increase exit velo, because if I increase exit velo of the ball, you just get more hits. The harder you hit it, the guys have less time to react. So that was kind of the whole – my goal was to get a better timing mechanism, hit the ball really hard next year, you know. And I got to that point where my max exit velocity went up 7 miles per hour from last year to this year. So now I just want to play baseball, but we got to wait.
Yeah. I think you bring up the point about like the strength stuff, and I think that's important. Like looking at movement capacity, like it goes for both hitting and pitching. Like the guys have certain movement capacity based on like where their body's at now, and maybe they can't do certain things. So what were some changes in your strength program that were made for that allowed you to kind of see those increases, or like body change wise?
Yeah. So obviously when we're at the facility in Arizona at our spring training facility, so there's a lot more nutrition there.
Yeah.
We're able to get in. Well, after surgery, we're drinking collagen every day, which just helps with ligament building. We're drinking protein shakes. They lay out like health stuff for all of us, where they want how much protein we need to be eating a day, how much carbs, how much everything. So pretty much, you just like if you just pay attention to that and kind of do a little bit of research, you're seeing how much food you need to be eating. And it's like a lot. If you're an athlete, it's a lot more food than you think you're eating, and it's almost impossible to get the amount of protein you need a day. They wanted us at like 200 to 220 of protein a day after surgery. They want me still at like 200 grams of protein. So that's a lot. Like that is a lot of protein. Obviously, you supplement it sometimes with protein shakes. I always drink a protein shake every day, and that helps keep weight on. But making sure you get 4 or 5 lifts, like good lifts in a week, especially if you're not playing ball right now, there's really no excuse not to be lifting heavy right now. It's really tough, obviously, if you don't have a gym to go to or you don't have some weights, but you can still lift heavy with at-home workouts with big-time reps and just different tough exercises to do at home. And I'm sure you could find a couple weights somewhere too, like if you look hard enough. But
use that gallon of milk, right? And
yeah, you just gotta crush food. You gotta not be lazy. Make breakfast, crush some eggs. So like lately, I just make pretty much a 4-egg scramble every morning. Crush some after my workout. I'll crush about 50 grams of protein in a smoothie, like 2 scoops of protein and some fruit, some frozen fruit. It's not expensive, you know, tastes pretty good. And then crush some chicken or steak later on at night. If you eat about a pound of that, you're pretty close to 200 grams. I looked it up. You're pretty close, depending on if you're ground beef or what you're eating. It's pretty close. You're around there. You're between the 180 and 200. So just got to eat a lot, though, and make sure you're lifting. And just everyone's like, oh, like how do you like do you go based on a dietary plan? It's like, no, you don't do that. Just pretty much don't be a cow, you know, like If you don't think you should eat it, just don't eat it. Like, if you want to have a piece of cake, have a piece of cake, but don't have a massive piece of cake every single day, you know? If we work out enough where you can eat it, we're ball players. I know a lot of dudes that they're ripped out of their minds, but they don't really work out that much, and they eat fast food all the time. Like, that's just how their bodies are. But for those of you who struggle gaining weight, you need to just eat way more. Like, you can eat more. You just need to actually do it. It's like, if you just have a protein shake, it's not going to work for guys who can't gain weight, you know?
Yeah, and you've definitely gone through some over the last like 3 years, some fluctuations in your body weight and your body composition in terms of like you kind of lifted up heavy almost to a fault at one point though and got too big, then lost the weight, and now at this past off season during the ACL rehab kind of fell somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah. So I think I overlifted to the point where, or overlifted. I don't know if it's overlifted, but it was more.
You feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't comfortable. Yeah, I felt like I wasn't athletic anymore. It was put on like a little too much body fat, I think it was more. Mm-hmm. So I was probably up near like, it was like 18%. And when I'm at my best, I'm 15 or lower. So I was up near 18 or 16 or lower. And I just didn't feel good. I was probably 228 at one point then. Then the next year I got down to like 212, and I was too skinny. But I was explosive then, but also I tore my ACL. So I directly correlate to being small to tearing ACLs right now. So I was just like, all right, we got to get big again. We got to get big. But we did it in a smarter way with like how I was getting my protein and how I was kind of treating my body. And we got just stronger. So I went from like 212 to 225 to 26 and lost like 4% body fat. So we're like 12.5% now.
I think it speaks to that it's always a continuing process, right? Like it's you're going through a season evaluating what do I want to work on? How do I need to make adjustments? And then executing that, right?
And like you can't physically work out as hard as you do during the season, as that you do in the off season. You just can't do it. It's too hard, you know? You should still be getting three decent lifts in. They're not gonna be as long, but they should still be as intense, you know? And you should still be hitting your, like, all parts of your body, but it's just impossible. That's how you stay healthy, but it's just impossible to get those 4 or 5 in, because you're in pro ball, you're playing every day pretty much. You might get one day off every 2 to 3 weeks. So you just got to do what you know your body needs in order to feel good, but you need to keep the weight on somehow. A lot of guys come there, I'm going to come in like at 240 because I know I'm going to lose 20 pounds. But if you're losing 20 pounds, you're playing smaller than you would be, which probably means you have less power and all that. So my goal now, it's not to come in like heavier, because that used to be my goal too. Like, come in heavier because I know I'm going to lose weight, which you probably will lose a little weight, but I'm trying not to lose any muscle. Like, that's typically what you're losing when you're coming in like that with that attitude. I'm trying to pretty much maintain my weight right around between 220, 225, right around there, and be able to maintain power throughout the entire season. So I know I just need to pretty much be better and more responsible about eating and staying up with my nutrition and stuff. That's pretty much what it comes down to, because I know I'm going to get my workouts in. I just need to be more conscious about my nutrition during the season.
Yeah, great stuff.
I think that's something that Matt and I talked about last week too, when is like guys don't maintain during the season. Like, you see a lot of like high school guys, and they just kind of like they work hard in the off season. They get to a certain point, they're feeling really good, and then they go into the season and like they stop with the maintenance stuff, and then they're like, oh, like, why am I not seeing the results? Well, like, maybe you're down 5 pounds, and like you said, you just don't feel as good. So it all translates. Like, when you're really good, you're at a certain point, like with your body, understanding your movements and how you feel. And then like when you're dropping strength or weight, like during the season, then it shows. And that's when guys usually start to kind of fluctuate in performance.
My whole thing is too, like when you come back to spring training, like, everyone might take them a couple days, but like the first couple scrimmages you're facing dudes that throw hard. Like, they're all coming, their arms all feel good, you know? So that's how I can tell, like, they're all at their peak. Everyone's body looks strong. Everyone looks like the ball's coming out of their hand good. Everyone looks like the ball's coming off their bat better than normal. But once the game starts, you really see who's putting the work in, not at the field. Everyone puts their work in at the field, you know, like everyone gets their work in at the field, but who's doing what they need to do at home um, to prepare for the games. You know, for me, I feel like I didn't do enough prior. And I feel like a lot of ball players, they just don't, like at home. Everyone does what they need to do. I always worked really hard when I was at the cage. I always worked really hard when I was at the field and in the weight room. But if that's the next step kind of that I learned with this injury is if I can do what I need to at home, stretching, especially with my knee now, like it's never going to feel the same. Like my knee's it's just different now. Like there's something that's not supposed to be in my knee that's in my knee. And I'll just always will need to stretch out more than I used to, and just take care of it at home so that I can perform to my best ability there. And I think part of it is mine was a freak non-contact injury. It wasn't like someone like hit my knee. It was I planted, my cleats got stuck in the ground, my knee went one way, my leg went the other, and it just kind of everything popped in there. So it wasn't like a lack of strength thing, but if I can get stronger, hopefully that takes away some extra impact on my knee because I don't really want a knee replacement when I'm like 45. I would like to be able to save that till when I'm older. Yeah. So for me, yeah, that's pretty much that's how I think of it. Like the best players, especially if you're there's dudes that are gifted, like that are just freak athletes. Like Mike Trout, he's freak. He's unbelievable at baseball. You know, there's other dudes that I play with that are just unbelievable. Those top prospects it's just in their genes that they hit the ball 115 miles per hour with ease. You know, they just were born with a swing that just worked. And then there's dudes that like me that I felt like I have to grind to get there. You know, I have to work really hard to get there and put a lot of work in. And I feel like a lot of high school kids that are trying to go to college right now, they have to grind to get there. And if you're willing to put the extra work in with your nutrition and with your development and that stuff, that goes a long way, not just going to get your swings in and being 6 feet tall, $150, you know?
Yeah.
Not many people are going to recruit that at a Division I school. You got to put the weight on and at least give them something to look forward to and be able to develop something, you know?
Yeah. That's something that was echoed. It's been back-to-back nights, even 3 nights in a row is like what you do away from the field is equally as important as what you do when you're there.
For sure.
So I think we had a question from someone earlier that was sent in. What is your favorite hitting drill and why?
My favorite hitting drill.
Something that puts you in a good spot. Like if you do that every day, it's kind of like that puts you in a good position.
So for me, my drills right now are I just go out to stride, like where I would land at heel plant. Just get to that point, and I just go for my launch position and just kind of try to feel myself maintaining my angle all the way to the ball with my hands passing the ball and then kind of flicking that wrist forward and stuff. And so pretty much I try to simplify it. That's how I start my progression in the cage, where just out to stride, we're doing flips, and I try to get there and then bring my hands forward to the ball, just pretty much working on my hands to start. Next, and then my next one, I just do a hover type thing, no toe tap. I'll just hover my foot over the plate and try to feel my front hip kind of going forward and just taking a swing. So it's kind of a separation drill, but it gets me right and it makes me feel like my hip is going towards the pitcher, because a lot of times I just kind of spin backwards. I would always have a problem doing that. And when I do that drill, that just gets my hips working correctly, my lower body, and then after that I just swing. But those are the 2 things. So I work on my upper body first, my lower body second, and then kind of just do everything together after.
Great. There's some other questions came in while you were answering that one.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips or drills to work on driving inside pitches?
Driving inside pitches. So if you're trying to hit an inside pitch to left field, it's not going to happen. that's usually when you get around it and you're top spinning or side spinning balls to left. For me, I just try to keep, so every pitch I'm trying to backspin to between left center and right center, pretty much, depending on where it is. But for inside pitches, if I'm trying to hit every single pitch off the batter's eye in center, that's kind of how I think of it. I just try to hit everything up the middle as hard as possible, like through the batter's eye. And those inside pitches now get driven. My biggest advice, though, is inside pitches, they're tough to hit. If someone spots a pitch on the inside corner, I just kind of tip, like, I'm not really looking there ever. I'm trying to get a pitch over the middle of the plate and really hit that mistake. I'm not trying not to swing at an executed fastball inside unless I got 2 strikes and I'm battling, you know? It's tough to hit that pitch. A lot of guys, I mean, if you watch a lot of the big leaguers and a lot of home runs now, balls are typically out over the plate. Like, guys are so strong and so big, they're pulling outside pitches over the fence. They're pulling them though. So my biggest advice, if you want to drill, I'd put a tee on the inside corner, obviously put it way out in front of your body, like, so that you'd have to, and then try to keep your hands inside as long as possible and don't pull it, just hit it up the middle. Then it should train your body to hit the ball more consistently with backspin forward rather than being lazy, getting around it, and then yanking it in the 4 hole or the 6 hole. They're hits maybe, but they're not at the next level. Those guys are good.
Sure. And that answer kind of ties into the next question too. How do you get yourself into position so you're able to hit that inside pitch, but without cheating or selling out for the outside corner or an off-speed pitch?
Yeah. So for me, I'm thinking more. So for me personally, it's like, what pitch am I looking for? The pitch I'm looking for, like the best pitch for me to hit, and I think for a lot of people to hit, or easiest pitch to hit would be that middle quadrant of the strike zone. Like, that's where your barrel goes, you know, naturally. So I always explain it as, if you were to measure the plate, it's like 17 inches wide, but it's about 7 balls wide. I'm looking for the middle 3 balls of the plate. And now if it's a tick in on that other ball, like tick in, I move my hands maybe a little bit this way. If it's away, my hands are a little bit more this way. But other than that, I'm not looking at corners, you know? It's just too hard to look for corners. So if I'm looking inside, if that's the question, I'm looking inside corner, you're just giving up way too much out over the plate. So now you're looking inside corner. Well, what if that ball's a tick more in? You're swinging at a ball. So for me, I'm looking at the middle of the plate. So if he makes a slight mistake, or if he throws it a little bit more in, it's still a hittable pitch. If he throws it a little away, I can still get my bat to it. But if I'm looking inside corner, I might chase in because it's right there almost. If I'm looking outside corner, I might chase away. And guess what starts on the outside corner? Sliders start on the outside corner, and they keep going. So I never really look. I just look for that quadrant and just look for a mistake, you know. Keeping your hip in, for me, that just comes with the whole deceleration, trusting your swing. If you can decelerate your swing, your hip's going to stay in. But if you don't trust your swing to decelerate, you're going to be trying to yank and get to that pitch. So if I try to just make my swing hit that ball at the middle, my barrel will get there and I'll decelerate my swing successfully. But if not, I'm just going to – I used to do this all the time too. But until I got comfortable and got strong enough and confident enough to just hit the ball and trust that I'm going to hit it hard enough to hit it up the middle, it was just too – I would just keep spinning, spin. The only thing I can tell you is make sure your heel's down. If your heel's not down, if you're like hovering and then slamming your heel down at the end, you're probably leaking open. If your heel's down successfully, you shouldn't be leaking open.
Good answer. Very good.
Yeah. For me, I just wouldn't personally. I just don't guess that pitch ever because you're probably going to leak open. If I was to guess inside corner, I'd probably leak open to try to get to that too. So just don't guess that spot. React to it. Just don't guess.
Yeah. I think this isn't a question, but I think this is something that we can talk about quickly is like as a pitching coach with the revolution of analytics and pitching and guys, like we're looking at high spin rate and like say a guy has high spin and like he's throwing up in the zone, and then he has a good breaking ball that he tunnels well with it. Like, as a hitter, what are you thinking when you're like previewing a scouting report of a pitcher and okay, like he pairs these two pitches together? What's like your go-to approach in the box to say, I'm going to eliminate one, or I'm going to know if it's coming through this tunnel or this part of the zone? It could go one of two ways. Like, what is your thought process in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, we face a lot of dudes like that have that high spin fastball and then a big curveball kind of. For me, the fastball typically jumps. Well, it starts really low, that fastball, because they're usually pushing. Honestly, it kind of looks like they're pushing up. So, like, we faced a lefty that was nasty, Mackenzie Gore, this past year, and he just gets so much extension where it looks like he's pushing the ball up, but it's kind of was a tick higher. So he's like the number 2 prospect in baseball. So he's just a tough at bat. He's really good, and
you just at release point, right?
Yeah, you're looking at release point. You're trying to pick it up. You're trying to see if you can see that cuff on the curveball. Every once in a while, I did see that one, but you see a hump, but if he executes it, like, you're probably not hitting it very good. That's just a reality of it. But you try to get those hangers. Like, if he did hang one, you're trying to get that one because you'll see the pop, But if he's executing a fastball at the top part, and you tell yourself, like, if it's a guy with a high spin fastball that's staying up in the zone, I'm looking like mid shin, because that ball's not actually mid shin. That ball's like mid thigh, So I'm just looking down like that. I'm trying to set my sights down. I'm honestly like bringing my head down a little bit because that's where the ball is going to be coming from. And same with guys like that, like more 3/4 that are pairing their slider with a 2-seam fastball. I'm just looking middle, and I hope I see spin soon enough where I can react to the spin,
Yeah.
Usually if that ball's coming at me, it's probably a curve. It's probably the slider, right? That's starting on that inside or slightly in, or starting on my hip. It's probably the slider. So I'm trying to hit that one good, and then trying to, I don't know, put a good swing on the fastball. But those ones, they're just tough guys to hit. Two-seam slider guys and fastball or high ride fastballs with like big curveballs. They're tough at bats. You just got to kind of hope you see it and trust your eyes,
Yeah. I think there was we can jump into one question that I want to get to before the person thinks we forgot. What's the biggest adjustment you've had to make as a hitter jumping from college to pro ball?
So I think the toughest thing, so college, just in general, college is about winning. Like, the coaches, like, you're trying to win, like, win now. And because that's just their job, that's coach's job in college. That's your job as a player in college. So if you get on base, it's good, In pro ball, it's all about development. It's different.
Yeah.
You're trying to develop players. They don't care if you go 0 for a week. They just want you to develop and get better and better. So if that means you're having to take a drill to the game and try to figure it out and try to make your swing better, that's what's going to happen. Like, that's happened to me a couple times where I've taken drills to the game and it doesn't go well. I don't feel right. But in a couple of weeks, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, like, my swing feels a little better. So the biggest adjustment was kind of being okay failing, and knowing it's part of the game. Because pitchers are really good. Like, in college, when I got out, it was my fault. I got myself out typically. I swung at a pitch that I couldn't hit well, or I didn't swing at a pitch I should have hit good, or I fouled off a pitch that was right down the middle. In pro ball, it's like that guy just executed like 2 nasty pitches on that corners, and then got me to chase a pitch that was just a tick down. It's nothing that you're a human. You're going to chase a pitch. And he just got you out. He was better than you that at bat, but you're going to get him next at bat, So, like, for me, it was kind of being okay with knowing that, hey, he gets you sometimes, but I'm going to get mine next at bat. Like, when he makes a mistake next time, I'm going to get mine. So, my brother-in-law says it good, but I'm going to get him more than I get got. So yeah, that's kind of my mentality now. Just try to get yours as much as you can, because you're gonna have days where some dudes are on 95 is hard to hit even when it's not moving, you know?
Sure. Does anybody else have any questions for Dave? So if anybody's typing anything in, were you actually able to get into any games this spring, or were you kind of just right before it was about to start, that's when everything shut down?
There was no official games that I was in because spring training for minor leaguers was going to start in like a couple more days when it got shut down. But I did have like solid 12 to 14 live at bats, and I had about 8 or so hits. So I was like a solid 8 for 14. I was hitting the ball good. I was driving the ball a lot better than I had been. And just putting together better at bats and swings. And I was comfortable like with my takes and everything. So it definitely, and I was mishitting balls that were going a lot farther than when I would hit them good, they would go like back in the day. So I just can't stress enough how important taking care of your body is and getting in the weight room and just getting after it, you know? Because strength has everything to do with how hard you can throw the ball and how hard you can hit the ball. And if your body can't take it, you're at risk for injury. So if you're not big enough, and if you're just too small, it's probably gonna be a lot harder to throw and hit the ball as hard. You know, you don't see too many sub 200-pound guys hitting balls 110. You know,
Sure,
so
definitely makes sense.
Definitely tough.
So I don't really see anything else, right, John?
No, I don't nothing. No other questions. So
I definitely think there are a lot of valuable cues and words of wisdom, Dave. So I definitely appreciate you coming on board for us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Just
Well,
a
thanks
reminder,
everyone for listening in. So
just a reminder, this will be on YouTube too tomorrow. If you missed anything or you want to go back and watch it, and as are all the other Zoom meetings.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All
everyone.
right. Awesome. See you guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
No problem.